something wrong with NFTs. And then what's the secret? If you can't tell, we love the branding, we love talking about secrets, but we're going to specifically talk about the secret of Secret Network and how we're solving this problem. We're going to talk about some of the projects that are already building these solutions on Secret. Maybe you've seen them in the halls, maybe you've read about them, but I'm going to go through at least a few of them that you can already be getting hands-on with. And then number 4, of course, the last thing I always show off, how do you build? We're a community of builders. I want to get more builders into the ecosystem so that you can start collaborating with all the other secret agents around the world, building your own solutions. If you were here earlier, you heard Kevin Smith say, Web3, and Secret specifically, is just a giant playground. There's so much to build, there's so much that hasn't been tried. So by the end of this, I hope you're inspired to try something for yourself. We want to unlock the future of NFTs, right? If you're here, you've probably heard the word NFT at least once. We're talking about non-fungible tokens. These are just pieces of code living on a blockchain that are supposed to represent something that isn't the same as anything else. And that means it can represent any kind of asset. It's a new kind of way, it's a permissionless kind of way of storing and trading these scarce digital assets that could be tied to real world assets or could represent something that exists only in an online digital metaverse. But this can revolutionize pretty much every vertical. We're talking art, visual art, we're talking about movies, of course, we're talking about finance and the financialization of assets on a blockchain. We're talking about cultural assets and IP. We're talking about things that have existed maybe in the Web 2 world as one thing, but in the Web 3 world, permissionless, remix culture becomes something completely different. We're already seeing it happen. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but for some reason, it feels like we're still kind of stuck. There is one very big problem with NFTs. Because blockchains are public by default, we're going to get to at least one blockchain that isn't, but because almost every blockchain, Layer 1 blockchain, is public by default, digital ownership with NFTs is kind of broken. It doesn't feel like real world ownership. I can give an example, right? Like if something is in your house, we know we own it because it's in our house. We invite people into our house. We invite people to interact with the things that we own. If we choose to share something with other people, then it feels like we have control over it. It's not enough for it to just be something that we say we own or that sits in a wallet we can claim we own. It's still not true ownership if we have to always let everybody into our house. Anybody can walk in and out and see everything. It feels very exposed. That's not true ownership, and that's because true ownership has its roots in privacy. Privacy being the right to share what you want with whom you want under the conditions that you want it to be shared. Without native privacy, without this privacy built into the NFT itself, we really can't build and hold value. Not for creators, right? The people who are putting their hearts and souls into creating non-fungible assets and art on the blockchain, but also for collectors. People who want to believe that when they buy these things, when they collect these things, when they put their own resources into these ecosystems and these assets of scarce cultural value, they want to know that this is going to be meaningful in the future, that it'll be worth something in the future. That when they own it, it feels like ownership. And if they choose to sell or transfer that ownership to something else, they need to know that person's going to value that ownership too. And the public by default model for NFTs does not support that. This brings me to Secret. I said that most Layer 1s are like this, but Secret is not. We built Secret because we knew we needed a different kind of blockchain. We needed a blockchain that was private by default. It's a different model, but it's a better model. Because now you start with a blockchain where things are private until you want them to be public. If you choose to share something with someone, you can. All the data on the chain is encrypted if it's being used in an application. But if you choose to share it with an application, if you choose to share it with another user, you can. You can always make something private public again. You can always choose to share it. But once something starts public, you can't put that back. The cat does not go back in the bag. The toothpaste does not go back in the tube. The private by default model isn't just about having privacy. It's about having choice. Public by default model is not the choice model. Private by default is. And choice is everything. That consent is everything. When you're a creator, when you're a collector, and you're thinking about scarce digital assets, and you're thinking about identity and reputation, represented as scarce digital assets on a blockchain. So Secret is a data privacy hub. Not only is it a layer 1 blockchain, it's also built to be interoperable with all these other blockchain universes. And maybe those are public by default, but we are a data privacy hub. When you're on Secret, you know that your privacy is being protected. The assets that are on Secret are protected in a way that they aren't on any other chain. And this is going to enable thousands of new kinds of applications to be built, especially for non-fungible assets, for metaverse applications, for gaming, all these things that rely on digital scarcity and the ability to have true digital ownership. They have special features, right? A Secret NFT is not like an Ethereum NFT. An Ethereum NFT has public ownership and public metadata. That's it. It's very inflexible. It's actually a shallow model. I call it shallow because it's just like, it's there and everybody knows what it is and everybody can see you have it, right? Like if you have a Bored Ape and you flex it on somebody, right? How cool is that? I'm flexing on you. I think it's actually a very shallow use case. All you're doing is proving you have something that somebody else doesn't. And everybody knows you have it. But a meaningful model would allow you to have public or private ownership. It would allow you to choose whether you're sharing this piece of your identity with somebody else or not. It would have public or private metadata. So some of it is known to everybody. The public metadata says everybody can know this. The private metadata says I'm the owner. As the owner, only I can know this unless I choose to share this with someone else. There's a lot of different use cases for Secret NFTs that have this native privacy and native access control, that can have public or private ownership, that can have public or private metadata. I put out a few here. I'll touch on them really quickly. But you can see that each of these use cases is just one of many use cases, and each of them has a lot of depth in itself. So creator monetization is one. You sell an NFT today, everybody knows what it represents, everybody can see it. There's this right-click save thing going on. I see you using an NFT, I'm just gonna grab the picture, I'm gonna download it, I'm gonna put it in something else. It's kind of like a weak argument, but it's still a confusing argument because it's kind of right. Like, why does everybody have the same access to something that I'm supposed to own? It doesn't feel like true digital ownership. But as a creator, what you can do with private metadata and Secret NFTs is you can have something in the public metadata that everybody would know. And then in the private metadata, you put something that is the high resolution version of the image, or the full version of the song, or the full version of the movie. Anybody can see the preview, anybody knows what's inside, they know who created it, but the actual meaningful asset is something that is controlled and owned by the owner. It's a much more sustainable model, and I can make a much stronger argument why those kinds of NFTs are going to have value in a year or 5 or 10 than the shallow public by default NFT model. Then, of course, there's this private gallery use case. Maybe you don't want everybody to know exactly which NFTs that you own, but maybe there are some people that you do. You want to show it off for your friends. You want to do a private display in the metaverse. Well, without revealing everything in your wallet, without letting everybody walk into your house, you can do this private gallery model quite simply on a network like Secret, where anybody can sort of rent access to see what you have. And again, as the owner, you consented to that. You let somebody over to your house. It's a better model for the owner because now the collector has the agency and they can monetize their collection just as the creator monetized their creation initially. There's also tremendous privacy concerns for artists, especially artists who come from marginalized cultures or work in marginalized worlds. You care about your privacy and your security on a financial basis too. And on a network like Secret that's private by default, it's not just for information, it's not just for NFTs, it's for everything. And we give you those guarantees all across the network for everything that you do. That's important to artists, but it's also, again, important to big collectors who care about maybe not having everybody know that they own 10 Bored Apes and putting a big target on their backs, unless, of course, they are ready to tell someone that they own it. They're still having to consent. Again, a better model, a safer model for ownership. And then lastly, but very importantly, identity is very complicated. We want to express our identities with our communities oftentimes and not have to perform them for the entire world at once. Community access control with Secret NFTs makes a lot of sense. You unlock access to this community, through your ownership of this private by default NFT. And now you're in the community. And the community might know who you are, and they might know what you have, and that's okay because you're all part of the shared culture. You all have the NFT, or you all have this social context. But now you don't have to have everybody in the world knowing what you're doing. You have the safety of that community where you feel safe to share. And you're not forced to share everything with the world like you would on a public by default blockchain. So there's all these advantages, all these use cases for thinking about a private by default model for NFTs as the only model that's going to be sustainable. And the only reason we haven't had this is because we haven't had a network like Secret to build these rails. So people have tried a lot of things with NFTs, and that's already billions of dollars going through this industry, but imagine what it could be if only we embraced these kinds of use cases and built them on top of Secret. Ultimately, our goal is not just to be a privacy hub, but we want to be this issuance and settlement layer for any kind of non-fungible asset, or really any kind of asset, right? It could be a fungible asset as well. Because we believe that this access should be controlled on-chain. We shouldn't be forced to re-centralize all of this just because we originally started building on public by default rails. A lot of people have solved the problems that I'm talking about by going back off the blockchain or doing everything in a centralized database and then kind of slapping Ethereum on top of it. That's not an improvement. Web3 is supposed to be an upgrade. It's supposed to be a path forward. We shouldn't be taking steps backward. If Secret becomes this privacy hub, this settlement and issuance layer, this interoperable, universal private smart contract hub that we're building it to be, now we're interoperable with all of these ecosystems, interoperable with Ethereum, with Solana, with any of these chains that already have creator adoption, but we're offering something even more. We're offering the opportunity to build with privacy by default and experiment in ways that you can't in other ecosystems. And for us, that's incredibly inspiring, and it's a mission worth pursuing. And we believe that's what's going to not only unlock value for creators and collectors, but that's what ultimately is going to be the only way that we'll sustain it without having to take steps backward into the Web 2 world that was never working for creators to begin with. So, who's already building? If you've been here all day, if you've been listening all week to what's been going on, you probably already know at least about this one. So LegendDAO, and I'm getting to Kevin Smith in a second, that's the next slide. But LegendDAO is a play-to-mint NFT platform, and that's built on Secret. And its own universe, right? You build this entire gamified universe of discovering collections, minting collections from the biggest creators in the world, the biggest, people who want to play in that sandbox, in that playground, and reach these communities. This is a platform that if you are a creator, you're going to want to launch on because we can take that to a universe of collectors who know exactly what it is that you're trying to experiment with, what you're trying to build. They want to play in that playground with you. And all of this has a bunch of very unique mechanisms like having the DAO treasury, backstopping and underwriting new collections, exclusive drops. Again, this is a world-class platform, and it's really only possible on Secret. Similarly, with Kilroy was here in particular, what Kevin Smith is dropping on Secret Network, and this is where I say make sure you come to the after party tonight at the venue, right? Open to the public at 9, going till 2, Kevin will be there. He's releasing his movie as an NFT, and there's a generative art collection that's launching, and it's all on LegendDAO. It has the behind the scenes footage, it utilizes the private metadata, it's much more inclusive, right? These are the kinds of creators we want telling the story that we've already been telling about the link between privacy as a technology, privacy as an ethos, and the way that creators are going to be empowered in Web3. He's been a storyteller his whole life, and now he's telling our story alongside us about why this is the platform that's going to unlock the next stage of evolution for NFTs in the metaverse. But even before this was launching, we had a ton of community experimentation as well, grassroots projects in the Secret ecosystem that were demonstrating the value of Secret NFTs. The one that I always like to feature, any Anons in the audience? Why did you do that? Anyway, thank you, Anons. Anons was the very first PFP project to launch on Secret Network. So, CryptoPunks was one of the OG PFP projects on Ethereum. Every ecosystem has its own OG collection, but this went beyond just an experimentation with the art and the culture of the network. Anons also used the private metadata, and it's super cool. It's that community access control use case that I was talking about. You put your Telegram handle in the private metadata, suddenly you unlock this universe, this Anon universe behind the scenes. But no one is going to know from looking at this NFT on the blockchain what the Telegram handle is. They can't go and dox you. They can't trace it back to your wallet, but everybody in that community knows that you definitely have an Anon, that it's definitely linked to something about your identity. And that's really cool. Within that community, there's a shared culture, a shared understanding of what it is to be an Anon, but unless you literally yell it out loud in the audience, nobody has to know that this is you. This is a really fun community. I very much encourage you to explore Anons after we're done here and, think about it. There's also gaming use cases. So I'm featuring one here, Orban Wars, which is a tower defense game. They have an interesting model. A lot of these gaming use cases in Web3 have become pay to win. Right? You just go, you know exactly what you need to buy. All the NFTs are on chain, you know exactly what you need to win. There's all these kind of weird economies that just centralize and then collapse, right? It's just not sustainable. On Secret, gaming is really interesting because you can have imperfect information games. It's a private by default network, right? It's the difference between chess and poker. Chess, everybody knows the game state. Poker, you don't know the cards, you don't know the deck. It's more interesting. Something could happen that you don't already know is going to happen. And Orban Wars also has an interesting model that it's not pay to win. The only way to get the NFT drops is to play. You have to play, you have to earn the NFTs, and then there's the game mechanics on top of that, leveraging the privacy-preserving properties of the network to create an experience that we believe is going to be more sustainable for Web3 gamers. GameFi on Secret, or any kind of gaming metaverse, it's really a perfect fit. Then there's the free to mint NFT model, right? If you've ever collected a POAP on Ethereum, like proof of attendance protocol, there's ways to turn things you're already doing, experiences you're already having, things you're already creating, just into proof that you have done something, attended something, experienced something, learned something, connected with somebody else. But that makes so much more sense on a private by default platform like Secret. Because identity is the sort of thing, again, you want to selectively reveal. Maybe you don't want everybody to know exactly what you've done for all time. The same way that we don't want everybody to know our browser history all of the time. The same way we don't expose all of our cookies all of the time. Right? This is not the model that we want Web3 to evolve into, where everything is public by default to everybody. There's a reason we don't use ETH NFTs to represent our entire Web3 browsing history. We don't even know what we've given away in Web3. But on Secret, the model's flipped. You get rewarded for what you do in a way that's not forcing you to give up any privacy or any security. In fact, you just get rewarded because the badge can have private ownership. You can always prove you've done something when you want to prove you've done it. And then in the private metadata can be something that no one else has ever seen, that only owners of the badge can see, that no one else will ever see unless you let them see it. You've gotten something that you were just passively getting for yourself, proving your own experience, and you haven't given anything up. In fact, you've only unlocked something really cool. So we're really looking forward to some of the go-to-market partners we have for badges, which you'll be able to collect, which you'll be able to potentially trade, combine, use in a game universe. I'm not going to say too much, but it's a very cool primitive, and if you're a creator, we'd like to talk with you about how you could leverage this in your own platforms and creations. And then lastly, I want to feature our NFT marketplace, because if you've never gotten a Secret NFT or seen one, you can go to Stash. It's at stashh.io. We've had 100,000 users, we've had a lot of connected wallets. There's over 200 collections that are already available to browse. You can browse, you can buy. Badges are also available to claim and mint on Stash. So there's a lot of platforms emerging in our ecosystem to let you do these things. I also promised I would feature my shoes. If you can't see them, I'll move a little closer. These shoes are Secret NFTs by the viral team V-IRL. Go viral. Yeah, they're linked to Secret NFTs. This is the kind of crazy stuff you can only do on Secret, right? Because they're using the private metadata, and I don't have to dox my wallet just wearing my shoes, guys. This is cool stuff. So anyway, check out Mainnet Stash if you want to get your first Secret NFT. This is the website. Take a picture. You have 3 seconds before I go to the last slide, which you should also take a picture of. Time is up. If you want to build, join the Discord, follow the Twitter, come to the Discord, all of these things, take a picture, follow up with us. If you haven't seen a secret agent in the halls, you're probably blind, and that's okay. I'll be out by the booth. It was really wonderful to see all of you. Don't forget the event tonight. Please enjoy the rest of DCentral. And yeah, come build on Secret, guys. It's a lot of fun.
We love our sponsorship partnership with Secret Network here at DCentral.